Hello and welcome to Scott Dance USA's World Champion Dancers and Teachers interview series. I'm Emma Schiff. The Professional Development Committee at Scott Dance USA wants to help the Highland dancing world stay motivated during these challenging times. That's why we're talking to the best of the best, world champion dancers and their teachers. We'll learn about how they achieved what they did, plus their advice for dancers and teachers struggling during quarantine. We hope these videos can bring you inspiration. Enjoy. Today, I'm talking to two-time world champion Natalie Hall-Foley and her teacher, Pat McMaster. Thank you both for being here. I want to start by talking about teaching during quarantine. Pat, you were just mentioning it's a bit difficult to teach over Zoom. How are you managing teaching during all of this?
We still have, I would say, 80%, I don't have a big school though, 80% of the kids all get a private Skype as well as going on the Zoom. And they go on the Zoom basically to see their friends in their boxes. So that's the social part. They can socialize on that. But in Skype, they have to still dance their work.
And Natalie, you're a teacher as well. How are you coping with this whole thing?
I teach Skype lessons twice a week for my 9 and unders and twice a week for premier dancers.
Is there anything outside of teaching that you're doing to encourage them to stay motivated, to stay practicing despite there being no competitions or events coming up?
I have requirements for my premier dancers to record their corrections and send them to me. I've done that for years, especially for those that live far away.
How much do you think your teaching style takes after Pat's?
I would definitely say a lot of it comes from Pat. One of the biggest things that I learned from Pat was to dance, not just be technical, but also learning how to perform on stage. I think that comes a lot from Pat's background in ballet as well. One of her famous comment was soft but strong. Learning how to make it look easy and perform in a way that's enjoyable to watch, not just looking like, that you're struggling up there, but it's making it look easy. What do you think, Pat?
Everyone at Cal can dance. They're all brilliant. You can all leap out of their ears. You don't see very few out of 80% that can't high cut, or they can't do this, they can't do that. But a favourite line, and it came from Paulina actually, she used to say, do something that makes me want to look at you. And if that something isn't there, it's kind of like a judge's preference, but not really, because you still have to have the technique and the work. But if you're not actually dancing, and that judge, a quote came from a judge years ago, you shouldn't really be judging, you should be enjoying what you're looking at.
Pat, it's very difficult to get that strength and still look elegant and like a dancer. How did you work on getting that look with dancers?
To help them overcome, stamina is the key. Definitely, and Natalie will tell you that. If you can't do at least 3 flings, 6 steps, one after the other, and not feel tired, then you have to be able to do that. You have to build that stamina, One of the things I do, and I don't know if every teacher does it, but imagine yourself right now, if you put on a 6-step killer slow fling, put your feet in first position, and just jump in first. By the time you get to the 3rd or 4th step, you'll be telling yourself, when the heck is this music going to finish? Because it's just that constant motion, and it builds the stamina. You need strength and stamina, they go together. If you have no stamina, you're never going to be able to put that presentation over. Mm-hmm. This came from Natalie, actually. I told her, if I can get up, I can do anything. I can conquer the world, and she did. If I can get up, and I teach that to every single little dancer, and they love it. They write it on the walls, they put it on posters. If I can get up, I can do anything. Because most little kids, they might like jumping, but they really don't when it comes to dance steps.
Natalie is a dancer that I always, when I watch videos, she's one of my favorite dancers to watch. Natalie, you would finish a dance as strong as you started it. How did you work on your stamina aside from doing dances? What did your practice routine look like, especially going into Worlds?
I had to work out at the gym 6 days a week. That consisted of weight training, swimming laps as quickly as I could, swimming the length of a pool with just arms, keeping my legs straight and crossed, or just legs on my back, crossing my arms. I did sprints, a lot of weight training, and then also in class with Pat, I did twice a week in class, one private a week. During the summer, we would have 6 to 8 hours of in class. So I would have a private, Paulina would have a private, whoever else would have a private, and then we'd have classes together all on the same day. So it was back to back, almost workshops the entire day. I do remember, I think one pivotal moment was when Alison McGregor was with us. And coming to Pat, she was visiting her uncle in St. Catharines, Ontario, and went to Pat's studio to keep fit during the summer. It was right after she won the World Championships. That was my first time, I think, in class with world champions. This was before I even went to Scotland. That summer, I believe that was kind of the pivotal moment for me because she was so amazing. She was so strong. And I think she was the one that might have mentioned to you, Pat, that I should go over to Scotland.
She was a good inspiration. She was fun. Again, that's the thing. We teach us, are you fun? You can't really be miserable all the time and yell at them constantly because they're not going to give you anything. Happy dancers, make achievements, definitely. But and Paulina used to complain because I would make them go out to the studio because it was right there before breakfast. I said, go out and warm up for a minute while I make breakfast, which I never really cooked anyway, did I? I sent them out to get the feeling that you might get to a dance competition first thing in the morning and you don't feel like what breakfast are and you haven't figured out how to warm up yet. So I would send them out before breakfast, so they would start like 7, 8 in the morning and go till 7, 8 at night.
Pat, was there a particular moment or something at a competition that happened that made you realize Natalie had a chance at winning Worlds?
And I always say I never, ever, and I still don't do to this day, I never tell a child that they're ever going to become a champion. That's not good. That's bad vibes, You just tell them to go out and do exactly everything you told them to do and enjoy themselves at the same time. And again, I don't keep quoting that, but she said the day she won the Worlds, I said, I can't believe how good you looked out there. And her exact words were, I just did everything you told me to do. To hear that the day you win the World, that was something, And the day we came back, the first lesson back after the Worlds, we kind of looked at each other and burst out laughing, like, well, what will we do next? And Natalie said we start all over from the beginning, and that's what we did.
Tell me about that moment when Natalie's name was called the first time she won.
It was surreal. It was like, I expected her to do well, but, in those days, they didn't go the way they go now. They started from 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you never get any medals in between. You didn't know who'd won. Now you do. Now you know who's going to win when you start pulling out those medals, But when they got down to, Paulina was holding onto my hand so tight, and I went down the line, and I know who I'm thinking about, but I won't quote her name. All the way down the line, it got to 3, then 2, and I thought, it doesn't feel right. And then when they called her name, I couldn't hear the number. I couldn't hear it because everybody was on their feet, obviously. And when I turned my head, because I was on this side of the stand, and I looked over, everybody was looking from the other side. And Mr. Thurn was my teacher. I don't know if you knew that. And she sent me a letter after, and she said, I've never been so proud. At that given moment at Cal, when they called Natalie's name and everybody looked at you, it was a very surreal feeling. I'm quite sure your teacher, your mum, your parents, everybody must have felt that. I mean, what did you expect when they called your name?
It was surreal. And Natalie knew I won before I did because I am not good at math and I couldn't figure out until we were in the lineup and they lined us up for the trophies and then they said my name last and then, everyone came up and started hugging me but Natalie, I want to hear what that moment was like on your end.
My mom, well, as Pat mentioned, they did it in reverse order and it was just the final. You did not get, your placing in the fling sword Chantres reel. So it was literally down to, they called first runner up and my mom looked at me and said, well, you either won it or you didn't place. And, obviously my heart was just going a mile a minute. And when they called my name, it was unbelievable because I had worked so hard for so many years. And I'll back up a little bit. When we decided to go to Scotland for the first time, I was 13. My goal was to win a medal. That's it. Just win a medal there. I had, it was the ultimate. Everybody all over the world was going to Scotland to compete. And my expectation for myself, even though I was doing well and repping for Ontario, going to Canadians, I had absolutely no idea how I would measure up there. And going over to Scotland when I was 13, the first championship, World Pipe Band, I believe I had won it, Commonwealth, Rossi, I was winning everything, went to the Scottish Championship and won that. And I had no idea that I could even make it into Worlds. Absolutely no idea. And we were all drinking out of the cup outside the bread and breakfast. Pat, Paulina, my family, everybody, all the dancers that were there. And Pat said, right, get to bed. I said, why? And she said, you're competing in the Worlds tomorrow. So I think the whole thing was just so surreal. And I think the next following years, I was very, very prepared and knew what my goals were. But initially, my goal going to Scotland literally was just to win a medal there. I had absolutely no idea that I would do so well.
When did it go from the goal was to win a medal to the goal was to win the Worlds?
After I finished Cowell, I didn't come in the top 6 when I was 13, but that was my goal. I realized that I could do this. I could work harder, and I know what it's like now. I know what I'm up against. I know how difficult it is. And, Pat and I just made that goal. We were going to work really hard, and I was going to give it everything I got for the next year.
In the year that Natalie won the Worlds, that the very year she won it the first time, all the judges, I think there was 9, and every single one of those 9 judges were all a former world champion.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was something. Yeah, that was really that was a plus.
And I was also surprised because afterwards they posted the results behind the grandstand and Pat came up to me and said, you got straight first across the board. That blew me away.
Do you remember that first moment you saw Pat after you came off stage?
The first person that came up to me after was Pauline. And
she was running across the field.
Mm-hmm. Told you we need tissues today. Sorry.
She did run. She was running. I didn't get that far down, but Paulina was running. Yeah. And, that's the thing I've got in my thing too here is about camaraderie of friendships, There wasn't one single iota of jealousy in the studio.
No.
And even like people like Amy Martin, when Amy came from Australia,
yeah.
Amy stayed for almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. I think her parents thought she had a secret boyfriend, but it was actually just us. Her parents came actually because they were a bit worried why she was staying here in the middle of the boondocks, But they had great friendships, and every single person cheered for each other, but more so for Natalie. They would be, okay, come on, you can do this, So, because they knew they wouldn't have as much a chance. They worked, but they didn't have, again, the work ethic as much. But there was no jealousy, ever.
No.
Never allowed it. They didn't have to, because they were just friends. and they cheered for her, you know. And then after every championship, yeah, we would drink out the cup, we would do the funny, crazy stuff and whatever else we did, you know. So
How important do you think those dance friendships are to keeping dancers involved and wanting to stay in this sport?
absolutely, totally. You know, I've got that in there too. And it might sound a bit a silly quote, but every single dancer that I've had, and I've been teaching for 50 years, every single one has done something else wonderful in their life. You know what I mean? They've all turned out to have great careers like yourself. I don't know, they just all seem to do these lawyers, doctors, they all seem to have done something really very wonderful. And I get a lot of quotes parents say, if they hadn't have been doing the studio dancing time, it's what you made of them. That's what you made them. And I still get them coming back, sending me letters, you know, like just being there, how great those times were. Friendships. You know, I mean, I used to make the joke about that. I used to say, you know, you're never all going to be a world champion, or even a champion for that matter. You know, I said, but you're going to do something more than that. You might become a brain surgeon and fix my brain, you know, because that's all I ever did. You know, Jim used to say, if it doesn't concern dancing, don't talk to Pat about it. You know, because you eat, sleep, and breathe it. And I keep thinking after Paulina that I would stop. No, look out the driveway because the studio is attached to the driveway at the house going up. And I never get that feeling in my heart beating when I see them with a little dance bag over the shoulder, you know, and they're coming up the driveway. The best feeling in the world. You know, it's just youth. It's a wonderful thing. I always taught them as well, don't look at the list.
I was a little bit different. It actually motivated me to see who I was up with and up against. Mm. But a lot of dancers get very nervous when they see who's in your group. For me, you know, I want to be dancing up against the best. It's the only way that's going to push me. I remember my very first year in adults, there was 8 world champions in my group, let alone people that came second, third, fourth, who were also wonderful dancers. Mm-hmm. 8 world champions in my group. And that one is probably one of the most memorable moments. Even though I didn't win it, I want to say I did get 2 first. I came first runner-up, but up against Gregor Bowman, Derek Mitchelson, like just amazing dancers that I looked up to when I was little and was competing against. So that was the ultimate. I remember I was with Gregor for the reel and just trying to keep up with the boys. You know, it pushed me harder.
Did you suffer at all from nerves?
I would get the jitters, but I wasn't nervous. I was comfortable on stage. For me, I would get up on stage. I always hiked my kilt up for some reason. But I would look at the judges to acknowledge them, and then I looked at the audience because I was there to perform for them. It wasn't about how I placed. As long as I danced my best, whatever the results are, you have no control over them. But I felt good about it as long as I danced my personal best. You know, that's your passion. Dancing was my passion. It was my break from reality. Whenever anything was going on in my life, I got on the dance floor and I didn't think about anything else. And the same when I was on stage, you know, it was just my passion. It was what I loved to do. I was very, very competitive and still am, but it's personally competitive. It wasn't against other people, you know. You can't, I would look at Gregor, I would watch videos when I was, you know, practicing, and you know, I would watch videos of, for instance, Gregor Straspe, and I can't be him. I'm not him. I'm not built the same as him, but if I liked his style, I would try and mimic certain things, but figure out how it looked good for me. You know, I did a lot of that. I watched a lot of videos, and, you know, and then I would run it by Pat, like, how does this look, you know? So it was kind of a combination of different things.
I did the same thing. I would watch a lot of videos when I was practicing too. You know, some people you like, some movements they do, and you're like, I want to be just like that. I would watch your high cuts because I think you had amazing high cuts. Pat, how did you work on high cuts?
Yeah, well, sometimes I think when Natalie was working in her high cuts, she used the thighs a lot. And sometimes I would tell her, you know, she would actually almost look like it was a thigh and then a kick, you know. And I said, try to push yourself up and just get your whole self, you know, so take your whole self up. That's where the quote came from. If I can get up, I can do anything. Okay? So if you're thinking of your technique, the technique of a high cut, literally, me, when I'm judging, I look at the landing foot. If you can't land on a turned out supporting ball of the foot, if you look at 80% of dancers, they land flat with a folding knee in it. I don't say turning it, they fold in. So they don't land on the ball with the hip out. So it comes from your hips, right? And if the height of your high cut depends on how high you want to get them up, that's fine. But it should be touching third rear aerial on the rear, and your thighs shouldn't drop on the way on the back. So there's a quote right there how I teach high cuts. Figure out the ball of the foot, landing foot, then get the hip on the other side out, and don't drop them. You see them hit the back of the leg and they go down over, so they drop the thigh. Natalie used the thighs a lot to high cut, and she had super height. She'd actually in the studio jump over the bar. The bar's about your shoulder level, elbow, the ballet bar. She could leap and go over the top from the distance over that. So it was the height. It wasn't so much her legs. She did get, but she took herself up.
Natalie, how did you work on high cuts during your practices?
It started with the leap part of it. For me, when I did the leap into the high cut, I almost wanted to get there and pause. My goal was to get up and almost pause with my legs stretched out to the walls. And so I would always think about reaching, elevating, like Pat said, because the higher you go up, and then reaching so I could get that, I call it hang time. So I'm paused.
Totally, I agree. I call it momentarily pause. There's a momentarily pause in the air. And that's, if I can get up, I can do anything. You're not a bird, can't fly, you're going to fall back down. So if you get your height is the thing, get up and then get those legs stretched.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then it was just the speed of getting my legs from first out to second aerial high. So the quicker you get your legs out, the longer hang time you'll get. And so I remember spending hours on that. And there was one moment that I remember I finally got it. And I think Myra was over. Pat, you went into the house and got Myra and got her to come out to the studio and said, watch this. And I did it and I finally got it. And so from working on that from leaps, then it was trying to incorporate that into high cuts where, you know, just thinking about keeping your thighs as far apart as possible, like Pat said, that you can't drop them so that you keep your foot up nice and high in third rear aerial on the double. Because if you drop your thigh, then everything comes down. So really just keeping the thighs up and far apart and trying to get that hang time by whipping your legs out as quickly as possible and elevating as high as you can.
I like Natalie's using the word hang time because that's a word I probably didn't use, and it's a good one coming from Natalie herself. But Mr. Thern used to say things like that. She used to say, get there quicker and stay there longer.
Right.
Get there quicker, stay there longer. And if you do that, you'll never be off time to the music.
Yeah, the one other piece of it is that the supporting foot has farther to go. So I would always focus on getting the supporting foot out quicker, and the other one just has to straighten to match it, right? So if you focus on the one on the ground, the supporting foot, sometimes if you even just, I used to practice it. I mean, we used to do things, crazy things. Pat would say, I know this sounds funny, but just do it. Try this, you know, it's going to seem odd, but so we would then just focus on that supporting foot and try doing high cut.
Right. And sometimes I would change my mind. So I'm not God. I'm not God. I can't, what I didn't do today, I might not like it when you come back next week, you know? But that was the one thing when I used to say, take it home. I learned this is from that as well. I told her, take it home and work on it and bring it back fixed. And she always did. It might have been not perfectly fixed, but she did bring it back fixed. And she would tug on my arm and my leg and say, did I get it right? Did I fix it? And going back to what do we work on and how do we do it? But I think a lot of the pressure in today's society, I'm not saying years ago, but in today's society, now hopefully COVID will fix things a bit out, but the parents are way too involved. Yeah, so a parent is a parent. And your job, the parent's job is, I've never known a dancer that made it to the top without support of a parent, you know. But the parent is there to pick them up when they feel down, pay the fees, and make them feel good about themselves, you know. But many of the time we've seen them in the corner or in the bathroom at the comp, and you're like, they do have the teacher as their mentor more than a parent, you know. Don't you find that, Natalie? Your teacher is, you're the mentor of your students. They listen to you before they listen to their parents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And now having a daughter who dances as well, I don't teach her. I give her to Linda and I walk away and I get to be the mom. And Emma's witnessed it as well, for sure. But it's very important to have that triangle of support. And have the parents there to support and just be the parent and you know, not another teacher, or it doesn't work. It doesn't work when they try and play the role of the teacher as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, sometimes you hear the parents saying things like, you know, telling them a correction. Oh, they shouldn't be doing it. You know, their job is just to be there.
Right.
Let them go on with it. And as much as you feel annoyed sometimes, you know, when they're at the competition and you feel annoyed with your own child or whatever it may be, your student, then that was the thing Paulina was good at. She never ever pulled them down there on a field or at a dance out. She always just said, that was quite good, okay, you know, and then she'd go back to the studio and say, by the way, that wasn't a good day, you know, do it later. Don't do it on the field, because it only makes them more miserable with each dance as it goes along.
So Pat, how do you deal with that when you have dancers, some of them competing at that world level, if they hit a roadblock, if they have a bad competition day, how do you help them overcome that?
I would just say love them. Hug them, love them, let them cry. Look, that's fine. It's allowed. It's allowed. So you had a crappy day, and that's okay, you know. But next time, next week will be better. We don't all get out of bed every morning feeling like what we want to do, you know. You have to first and foremost love your students before anything else. Before you make them a champion, you know. You have to get all into all their little personalities. You know, I mean, it's standing jokes when they come in, because I've been doing this a long time. Come into the studio and I take a look at their face, especially teen queens, we'll call them. Teen queens. I'll say, so what's your problem tonight? You go, something wrong? They go, no. You sure there's nothing wrong? No. Okay, you must have had a fight with your mum then, did you? No. No. A bad day at school? No. I said, well, it must have been a fight with your boyfriend then. And then you would just burst out laughing. And, you know, and as Natalie said, made a quote earlier, go into the studio, no matter how miserable you feel, when in doubt, dance it out. Dance, sweat, and you'll leave that room feeling like $1 million. You won't feel miserable anymore.
Mm-hmm. For me, again, I would go into the studio and it was my break from reality. I didn't think about anything else ever. It was my complete and utter focus on what I was doing. And for me, I always remembered my corrections and didn't want to ever disappoint you by coming there without it fixed. And that was just me personally. It wasn't that it was coming from you, but I just wanted to make you proud and set a good example for the other dancers too, because I knew that, you know, I was at a higher level, like caliber of dancing wise, and I wanted to make sure I was setting a good example for everyone else, especially younger dancers that were in the studio as well, to show that if you work hard, it pays off. And, you know, if you're given a correction, Pat would give me a correction and then go to the next dancer and I would start working on it. We had mirrors in the studio, so I would immediately start working on it while she was working with somebody else. I didn't just stand there. And I think setting that example probably throughout the years, you know, has carried on within Pat Studio too, because it's an expectation. If I give you a correction, start working on it while I go to the next person. And then, you know, at least you've started the momentum of fixing it. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And always, always finish your lesson on a good note. Because, you know, you could be yelling the whole lesson at the kids, you know, like, you know, you're not working this, you're not fixing it, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the lesson, she'd always say, that was a really good try, well done. And I went to the Royal Ballet School as a youngster, and that you never left the room. Everybody in the room stood and clapped. We all clapped, because we clapped each other. We clapped the teacher, we clapped the pianist, we clapped each other, you know, and it's a good thing, you know. You should never allow them to walk out. Well, I'm sure you don't let them walk out the room without saying thank you. And you tell them that was a good try, well done. So that they will come back feeling that they might go practice and feel a bit better about it.
Right.
Yeah. Natalie, you were clearly very motivated to stay practicing during this challenging time where we don't have these competitions. What is your advice to competitive or non-competitive dancers to keep practicing, to stay motivated, to maybe practice at that same level as if there were championships coming up?
I've kind of switched it around to having it's a gift of time. You have more time now. So for me, I've started to break things down further and work more on shedding for 30 minutes. Rather than giving them a correction, I'm literally spending the time in each class to break things down and work on just shedding for a half an hour, or just back steps for a half an hour, or patty baz or haikus or whatnot. And
that's something we always did, right? That's right. Something we always, I made Natalie do 50 minutes of patty baz once, half pointing for patty baz for 50 minutes. And she never cried or said, I don't want to do this. Yeah, you have to keep working diligently on the same thing until they figured out the correction so they can take it home.
The last thing I wanted to ask is, what is your fondest memory? Pat, let's start with you.
Obviously, my fondest memory, because I wrote that down, was when Natalie did win that Worlds and how it felt, you know, to be, I could say, a teacher of a world champion. You know, it was surreal to think. And if you look again at the world, how many dancers are in the world, and how many really good dancers are in the world, and how many of them have claimed a fame on that, just to see being here done that, you know. So I used to make the joke, can I retire anytime now, you know, but that didn't happen. 50 years I'm still doing it. And my other fondest moment was when Paulina passed her judge's test. That had to be my ultimate, you know. And then I'm not going to cry now, but we thought alike. We did everything together alike. And it never changed. So I quote every day. I tell the kids exactly what she said, because we thought the same. And we did the same thing. I miss that, obviously. So, but I'm still waiting for Natalie to do her. I'll change the subject. I'm waiting for Natalie to do her judges.
Natalie, same question.
Obviously, winning the juvenile worlds and then the junior worlds. I think I had a goal of winning all three. I wanted to win juvenile, junior, adults. And that didn't work out. I came second in the adults, I don't know how many times. But overall, my fondest memory is literally just being on stage. And I think that, you know, being retired now, it goes by so fast when I look back. It didn't feel like it at the time, but that's the one thing I think any retired dancer would give anything to be able to do again, and just get on the stage and perform.
Yeah. We all know it doesn't last forever. That's when you try to tell them that, I used to say that when we were younger. I say one day you'll want me to slap you and say, I wish I'd tried harder, you know, when I was younger. But it doesn't last forever. Your body only can go so much. You can move on, be great teachers and judges and all the rest of it. And still being involved is really good.
Wait, is there anything else, Pat, that you want to
Yeah, I just want to ask Emma, what was her fondest memory of her dance life?
My fondest memory was definitely winning Worlds, because that was very unexpected, and Natalie knows that was a bit of a rough year. I'd broken my foot a few months earlier, so that was completely unexpected. And then Linda mentioned this in our interview, but we actually got to go over to Glasgow. The BATD paid for us, Erin, Marielle, myself, and Linda, to go over and do a choreography at their, I think it was 125th, maybe 150th celebration dinner in June. And that was just an absolute honor and just really fun. And that dance that Marielle choreographed, it was beautiful. And I was so thrilled to be a part of it. So those were my standout moments.
Mm-hmm.
And that was performing. So that was good.
Oh, I've got one more too. So another fond memory for me was being asked to be the spotlight in the Edinburgh Tattoo. So they featured one world champion each night, and I received a tape cassette with the music and the choreography that I had to do written out, I believe by Billy Forsyth, via mail, and I learned it. There was no rehearsal or anything, and I remember being side stage on the Esplanade at the Edinburgh Castle, and the music came on, and I knew what count I was supposed to go out, and out I went, and being in front of probably 100 dancers and musicians, and in the background looking up and seeing the castle, it was pretty amazing experience.
Thank you both so much for joining us. I'm so inspired by your story of how you got, to winning 2 world championships, but also of how passionate you both are about Highland and how all these years later you're still just as involved. So thank you so much.